Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin. Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Let us begin our program today, this morning, with the recitation of Kitab Al-Fatihah. A'udzubillahi minasyaitonir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Rahmanir rahim. Maliki yaumiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdinas siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladzina an'amta 'alaihim. Ghairil maghdubi 'alaihim waladdallin. Amin. Respected Dr. Norazlina Noor, our speaker today, this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters who are here face to face, as well as who's joined online on our Zoom platform. Welcome to the Syed Naquib al-Attas Library Lecture number 3, formerly known before as al-Attas Lecture. I'm Brother Fazli bin Omar, head of Syed Naquib al-Attas Library, is the MC as well as the moderator for today's event. Okay, al-Attas, Syed Naquib al-Attas Lecture Series is another platform for us to inform and also to promote the holdings of the library to the entire world, not only in Malaysia, but also to the rest of the world. So we do have almost 140,000 collections. Half of it are special collection, which consists of the manuscripts, rare books, and also scholars' collections. So for this particular program, we also highlight our holding of the most important dictionaries, which already been researched and also studied by the presenters today. So this is the third library lecture series under the title of Early Malay-English Dictionaries, the work of Bowery and Marsden as legacy of Malay as a language of trade from 70th to 90th century. This topic will be presented by respected Dr. Norazlina Noor. Okay, let me draw your attention to the biography and also the expertise of our speakers today. So the current position of Dr. Norazlina is the chairperson of Malay Community Arts Association, Pertubuhan Komuniti Seni Melayu, KSM. She also the secretary of the Pertubuhan Silat Berkeris Malaysia, Perkeris, and also members of the Malaysian Mensa Society and members of the Sri Aman Old Girl Association. So she is very fresh graduate of the PhD from ISTAC this 2023 under the supervision of the Prof. Dr. Faridah Abdul Manaf. Okay, with the title of her thesis is Early Malay-English Dictionaries, the lexicographical legacy of Malay as the language of trade from the 70th to 90th century. So inshallah, this November, Dr. Azina will receive her scroll at the stage at the ICC Gombak. So she got her master in education in 2000, and also she also the alumni who got the bachelor's in business administration from the International Islamic University during the year of 1995. Okay, her works experience from 2002 until current. So she established what we call the company and named Create Opportunities Sendirian Berhad, which is she is the trainer and also consultant. Okay, designed and conducted communicative English courses for Mara employees. She also trained Mara entrepreneurs and consultants in personal financial intelligence and business communication. So her team also facilitate and conduct courses in personal financial intelligence, entrepreneurship, and cash flow. 101 game for Mara Professional College student, KPM. So there are lots of the trainings provided by her company. So most of them focus on the Mara, So besides that, she also able or her expertise is as a translator and also editor. She has a very keen and also enthusiast in the translated of series of children's book and edited several technical and medical books for Institute Terjemahan and Buku Malaysia. So we're pretty sure that there are lots of the books being translated and also published by the her team and under the Institute Terjemahan Buku Malaysia. She also translated for Museum Negara's exhibition on Peking Man exhibition in March 2018. During 2017, she also edited the Malaysian Museum Journal for Jabatan Museum Negara. So I think that is among her expertise. Otherwise, I have to spend half an hour for her CV to be completed. Right. So what is actually these two dictionaries plays important roles in the traits of the Malaya during that time, 70th to 90th century. What are the significance of this dictionary that can play a role for the civilization of the Malay? So all this will be answered by Dr. Azina in her presentation today. So without further ado, I invite respected Dr. Azina to deliver her presentation. فليتفضل مشكورا. السلام عليكم.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Norazlina. Thank you, Brother Fazli. Thank you, everyone, for making time to come here. Right. Today, we're going to be looking at early Malay dictionaries. Now, specifically, we're going to look at two of the earliest dictionaries by Thomas Bowery and William Marsden. These two dictionaries are in ISTAC Library Collection. So maybe with a special request, you can have a look at the dictionaries in their collection, inshallah. Now, let's go back to the Malay archipelago around the 17th century. We geographically and linguistically, the Malay archipelago refers to the regions of Southeast Asia where the Malay language was spoken either as a first or second language. Now, we all know that the Malay language was the lingua franca. We learned this in school. It's the lingua franca of this region, the language of trade. But what does that really mean? We're going to look at that in today's presentation. Okay. Now, let's look at specifically the Malacca Sultanate around the 15th century. At this time, the population of Malacca was around 120 to 200,000 people. And Tome Pires reported in his travel accounts in the Suma Oriental around the 16th century that the traders came from 16 places from around the world. And as many as 84 languages were spoken just in the Malacca Sultanate. And we can assume around the Malay archipelago as well. Now, why did foreign traders learn Malay? Why was it important for them to learn Malay? Now, learning Malay was a way for traders to reduce their reliance on local translators and local interpreters. And in this way, they can reduce the risk of being cheated or being scammed. And they gain more control in negotiations, and they were able to build economic and political connections. Now, this helped the trade companies, other than the traders themselves, this helped trade companies gather intelligence on the local people, insight into the local culture, and it also gave them access to local knowledge, the indigenous knowledge. The following manuscript I will present a few manuscripts that will show the importance and position of the Malay language as a trade language during this period. Now, the earliest Malay correspondence to a foreign sovereign is a letter from Sultan Abdul Hayat of Ternate to King Manuel of Portugal. This letter is dated 1521. You can see the original letter. Now, this is considered the earliest known correspondence. Why was this letter written? It's written mainly to establish the sovereignty of the Kingdom of Ternate with the Portuguese, because at this time, the Portuguese were a superpower in the world, economic superpower. So it was important for local Malay kingdoms to establish themselves. Now, several trade terminologies I've selected to compare with similar entry words in Bowery's and Marsden's dictionaries. Mainly, I selected trade lexicon or trade terminologies. So why did I do this? This is to highlight the continued use of these terminologies from the 16th century. And it shows that the constant use of these lexicon within a span of almost 500 years is a testament to the prominence of Malay in international maritime trade. So this is evidence of the prominence of Malay as a lingua franca in the Malay archipelago. So you can look at this table. In the letter, Pelabuhan, Harta, Feringhi, Portugal. In Bowery's dictionary, he still used the word Labuan, except for a shorter version. Harta, he used dagangan. Feringhi, Bowery did not refer to any Europeans or the word Feringhi in his dictionary. And Portugal, he referred as Frangi. And in Marsden's dictionary, he used the word Labuan, dagangan, Feringhi, Nasrani, or Portugal. Now, keep in mind that Bowery created his own Romanized spelling of Malay, and Marsden created his own Romanized spelling of Malay. So, so Bowery established the system of Romanizing the Malay language. Next is the contract of sale for pepper. This letter is dated 1600. Now, from this contract, you can see that Jawi, that the Malay language was used to write contracts in the 1600, and it was written in Jawi. This is a contract to buy pepper signed between Tun Jawa. He was the harbor master or Shah Bandar, and this contract was written with 2 Dutch captains. So you can see it was a really important to be fluent, to understand Malay when you're doing business in the Malay archipelago at that period. Here are the words that are in the contract: Shah Bandar, Tahil, Harga, and Lada. And these words are still being used. We still understand what they mean, even though Tahil is not being used. This is the Malacca laws, and the Malacca laws and the Malacca maritime laws were written during the 15th century. They were compiled by well-known captains or nakhoda, and it was established as a maritime law to be enforced at sea and on sailing vessels. So this is the law that governed trade in the Malay archipelago during this period. Now, the Malacca maritime laws were also used at other trading ports around the archipelago, but they were adapted. The laws were adapted to suit the language, the dialect of the area, the period of time, and the needs of the different localities. That's why you can find different versions of the maritime law. Here are the vocabulary, the lexicon what I found when I went through the whole maritime law. So we have modal or capital, cukai, kharajat, and riba. So this shows that Islamic law was being enforced, was implemented in trade at that time. So this is again a testament to the extensive and frequent use of Malay manuscripts, vocabulary, Malay vocabulary in the context of trade. Yeah. Now, this is from Bowery's dictionary. Bowery included 10 dialogues in his dictionary. So he had the vocabulary and he had 10 dialogues which he included. And these are constructed conversations. Probably this is what he imagined the conversations would be, or maybe he went through or he participated in these kinds of conversations in his trade endeavors in the archipelago. Now, they are constructed conversations in both English and Romanized Malayo. I call it Malayo because it's not Malay. It's Bowery's version of Malay, his spelling. And the dialogues show Malay vocabulary in different contexts, settings, and probably to present grammatical structures for the user, the trade user. So as you can see, this dialogue is between the king, the Shabanda, the pepper waiter, a merchant, and his partner. This is an extract of the constructed dialogue. Now, you have to understand that Bowery was not literate in written Malay. He could not read or write in Malay. He could only speak in Malay. So his transliteration of Malay is based on his pronunciation, what he thought the right pronunciation was. So you can see the dialogue is, this is his dialogue in English. And the tutuan yang keempat, tuturan antara raja, this is his transliteration of Malay. So this extracted dialogue shows how necessary it was for a merchant to be fluent in Malay and to be able to negotiate not only with other foreign traders, but also with the highest authority, the king. Bowery began the conversation by honoring the king in the appropriate manner. So from this, we can see that an understanding of the appropriate social dexes may affect the outcome of a trade negotiation in any region, in any country, even now. Now, the EIC, or the British East India Company, understood the importance of being fluent in Malay towards the success of their trade interests in the region. So much so that they provided a list of 52 Malay words and phrases for EIC officials and traders headed towards the Malay archipelago. Now, the British East India Company was established in 1600. That was way before they started coming into the Malay archipelago as a company, trade company. And they already realized the importance of knowing Malay. They made learning Malay a condition for employment as an apprentice in the trade company. Now, I discovered records of court minutes from the British East India Company dated January 22nd, 1614. It says, a book of dialogues heretofore translated into Latin by the Hollanders and printed with the Malacca tongue. Mr. Hakluyt, having now turned the Latin into English and supposed very fit for the factors to learn, ordered to be printed before the departure of the ships. Now, the book of dialogues that this minutes refer to is the book of dialogues by Frederick de Houtman, 1603. He was a Dutch trader who traded mostly in Aceh, and he was imprisoned in Aceh. When he was in prison, he compiled a book of dialogues. He learned from the prisoners in Aceh. And then it was translated to Latin by Augustus and later translated to English by James Howison, financed by Mr. Hakluyt. So this book of dialogues you can still find online. So Malay language gave them an advantage over other traders and provided greater opportunities to gain control of the local ports by fostering better relationships with port authorities and even state rulers. Now let's look at the dictionaries themselves. Now, why are dictionaries important? Because we have to understand that dictionaries defines cultural identities. And the dictionaries, the lexicon, the treatment of the lexicon in the dictionaries reflect perceptions of the people who compile them, not the people who speak the language. So we can see that the treatment and interpretation of the target culture lexicon can be used to control people's thoughts and behaviors, and they have been used in such ways. Now, collecting vocabularies are considered an imperialist tradition. Why? Because along with samples and drawings of flora and fauna that were compiled, explorers also compiled new words. In the beginning, these word lists were comprised of words that helped the explorer to converse with the local people. But later, they functioned to facilitate conversion, conquest, and control. So in the end, Malay lexicography or Malay dictionaries emerged and evolved as a way to document a language which would later be used against its own speakers. Because, as I said, the word lists were not compiled for the speakers of Malay. They were targeted for traders, missionaries, and trade companies. That's why it's important to look at the evolution of Malay lexicography. Now, let's start with the 15th century. This is a compilation of Chinese Malay word lists. The compilation began in early 15th century because it was recorded that Chinese emissaries first came to Malacca or the Malay archipelago around 1403. So they probably started around 1403, and literature says that it stopped around the invasion of the Portuguese, the arrival of the Portuguese, 1511. Now, in this word list, there are 482 entries in Chinese characters, along with the phonetic transcriptions. Sorry. Okay, now we've arrived at the 16th century. This is Pigafetta's word list. Pigafetta joined Magellan in his attempt to circumnavigate the globe. However, Magellan, as we all know, did not survive the trip. And Pigafetta arrived at the Malay archipelago in 1521. So this word list comprised of 400 words, and it's considered to be the oldest Malay vocabulary in a European language. Now we've come to 17th century. 1603, Frederick de Houtman published this dictionary and dialogues. He published this in the Netherlands or Holland, and it's the first Malay book to be published in Europe. And okay, next, we've come to the 18th century. Thomas Bowery was an English independent trader in the Malay archipelago for 19 years. Before he came here, he traded in the Indian continent. And as I said before, he is only fluent in spoken Malay. And on his journey back to England in 1701, he compiled this dictionary, 594-page dictionary, which he published in England. However, there are rumors, not substantiated, that he took over the work of someone else in compiling this dictionary. So it was not totally his work. I can't recall the name right now, but it's an Englishman as well. The Englishman was not able to finish the task, so he gave it to Bowery, for Bowery to finish it. We've come to the 19th century, and more than 100 years later, after Bowery's dictionary, Marsden published his dictionary. But between that time, 100 years, I think Spalding updated Bowery's dictionary because the British East India Company asked him to update the dictionary to include Jawi words in Jawi, because Bowery only had it in Roman alphabets, Roman script. Now, William Marsden's dictionary was published in 1812. We look at the rest of other dictionaries in the 19th century. We have ones by Thomson, Crawford, Keysbury, Swettenham, Kessler, and Pringle. Now, early Malay dictionaries were extensively compiled by Western traders and colonial scholars. The accuracy and appropriateness of these dictionaries are uncertain, and their impact on lexicography and language remains unexplored. Now, at this time, you may ask yourself, why only Western lexicographers, that compile the dictionaries? Because at this time, 19th century, Malay scholars, Malay Muslim scholars were focused on teaching Malay studies to the local population. Their opinion is that we already speak Malay, why do we need to learn Malay? So they didn't see the need to learn Malay or to teach Malay. However, one scholar realized this threat, and it was Raja Ali Haji. And he published the Bustanul Al-Katibin and Kitab Pengetahuan Bahasa. Kitab Pengetahuan Bahasa is a compilation of dialects in Malay, Johor, Pahang, Riau, Lingga, in Jawi. It was written fully in Jawi. And unfortunately, he only managed to compile this glossary up to the huruf, the character cha, before his passing. Now let's look at Bowery and Marsden a bit closer. Bowery was in English, as I said before, English independent trader. He was not affiliated with the British East India Company. He was a free trader. He was a captain who traded around this region, fluent spoken Malay, and he was the first to Romanize Malay in the English or in the Roman script. So if you look through his dictionary, it is quite an effort to try to decipher or try to understand what the Malay word was, because his spelling follows his pronunciation, his phonetic, what he knows about phonetics in English. And William Marsden was different from Bowery. In fact, William Marsden looked down on Bowery. He called him an illiterate buffoon because Bowery couldn't read or write in Malay. William Marsden was a civil servant with the EIC in Sumatra and later in the Malay Peninsula. He was a linguist, a historian, a numismatist, and served as treasurer and vice president of the Royal Asiatic Society. He loved pantun. He would translate many Malay pantuns. So he really appreciated the Malay literature. Now, this is how much appreciation Marsden had for the Malay language. You can read this. It has been much celebrated, and justly, for the smoothness and sweetness of its sound, which have gained it the appellation of the Italian of the East. This is owing to the prevalence of vowels and liquids in the words, and the infrequency of any harsh combination of mute consonants. These qualities render it well adapted to poetry, which the Malays are passionately addicted to. Unfortunately, we don't share this appreciation for our language. So, however, Marsden did not share this appreciation for the Malay people. He appreciated the Malay language, but he did not appreciate the Malay people. This is also in his book, The History of Sumatra. He says, the Malay may thus be compared to the buffalo and the tiger. In his domestic state, he is indolent, stubborn, and voluptuous as the former. And in his adventurous life, he is insidious, bloodthirsty, and rapacious as the latter. Indolent means lazy. So that's where the saying comes from. So we need to understand the mindset of the compilers before we can understand and study their translation, their treatment, and their interpretation of our language and culture. So this is a comparison of Bowery's dictionary, his organization, and Marsden's organization. You can see that Bowery's treatment is direct translation. It's just very simple. Merchant, dagang, orang dagang, saudagar. Trade, berniaga, seaport, labuan, or bandar. However, Marsden he included the Jawi version of the words in Malay. He wanted to make sure that we were able to pronounce, or the traders were able to pronounce the Malay words correctly. That was not Bowery's intention. Now, let's look at Islamic lexicon. There are many less Islamic lexicon or terminologies in Bowery and Marsden's dictionaries. I did not find any literature on the study of Islamic lexicon in Bowery or Marsden's at the moment. Now, Malay vocabulary was influenced by Islamization in several ways. The first is Malay vocabulary where religious and cultural terms abound, with words such as solat, zakat, and nikah were used. Second is in the form of Islamic economic terms appearing frequently in trade policies, as I showed before, like riba, and negotiations and contracts involving Muslims and non-Muslim traders. Now, the third is the adoption and enforcement of Islamic law by many kingdoms in this region, where political terms changed into the Islamic term. And the final aspect of life in the archipelago affected by Islamization was the adoption of the Islamic Hijrah calendar. First established in Malacca around 1400s, I could only find one literature about the Hijrah calendar being practiced or being implemented in the Malay archipelago. So I was surprised when I found it in Bowery and Marsden dictionary and research. This is Bowery's dictionary, his entry for the word Allah. The word Allah appeared 177 times in Bowery's dictionary. But his translational equivalence is simple. Allah, God. As you can see yourself, the true God is only one. Allah punya alaman, the way of God. Allahi, godly. Dia orang Allahi, he is a godly man. Allah Ta'ala, Yehovah, Lord and Lord God. Allah Ta'ala dapat ampun dosa semua. The Lord can pardon all sins. Now, Bowery's definition of Allah are ambiguous, and it does not provide any explanation for the term in reference to Islam. It's very general. And this is Marsden's, from Marsden's dictionary. The word Allah appeared 178 times. Now you can see Marsden provided translational and explanatory equivalents. Explanatory means he explained, and he gave examples of how the word is used in different phrases, in different contexts. So you can read what he has translated into. So similarly to Bowery, Marsden's definition also fails to provide a self-sufficient definition, and instead provided examples on the uses of the terms. It could be that neither of them consider Allah as a term restricted to the Islamic context, as we now know with the many issues that have come up. The definitions in both dictionaries are very general in nature, which may cause or have caused confusion in users. Both definitions seem to allow for the term Allah and God to be used interchangeably and applicable to any religion. Now, other Islamic terms, the treatment of other Islamic terms in the both dictionaries display an absence of Islamic context in definition or translation. And it also reflects biased description and the Western understanding of matters relating to Islam, or perhaps a flagrant disregard for the sanctity of the Quranic corpus. It seems that they did not refer to any Islamic scholar when they compiled this dictionary. And the result of this is it weakened the influence of Islam and eventually secularized the Malay language. Now, let me show you the Hijrah calendar that Bowery included because he thought it was crucial to English traders in this region. Apart from learning Malay, they must know the Hijrah calendar. They must understand. Marsden presented a paper on the Hijrah calendar before his dictionary was published. Now, this is evidence that the Hijrah calendar was used in trade and government throughout the Malay archipelago. This is Bowery's Hijrah calendar. It's under the heading Malayos and all other Mohammedans. They call Muslims Mohammedans at that time. and all other Mohammedans their manner of computation of time. Bowery did explain in the dictionary the origin of the Islamic calendar. He described the migration of the Prophet Muhammad SAW from Mecca to Medina in the year 622 CE. Bowery explained that the Islamic lunar calendar is computed in the same manner as in other countries such as Turkey, Egypt, Morocco, Arabia, India, all the South Sea Islands and the Malayo countries and all Mohammedan countries. So you can see this is Bowery's calculation of the Hijrah calendar. This is 1701. He calculated the table, he presented tables of the Hijrah calendar with the months, with the corresponding Gregorian months for 33 years. That means he published in 1701 and the Hijrah calendar extended up to 1733. So he really wanted to give a heads up, or he really wanted to help these English traders to trade successfully in the Malay archipelago. He gave them the calendar up to 1733. And Bowery considered the knowledge of the Islamic lunar calendar to be important to an English trader if they wanted to succeed in this region. This is Marsden's Hijrah calendar. He presented this in at the Royal Society of London in 1788, before his dictionary was published. However, he did not appreciate the Hijrah calendar. Yeah, he knew it was important to know, to understand, but he didn't appreciate it. So you can see his computation is from first Hijrah, and on this page is up to the year 531. But in his paper, he presented up to the year 2000. From first Hijrah to the year 2000 CE. So he went, yeah, way further than Bowery. Now, this is Marsden's opinion of the Hijrah calendar. The inventors of the Islamic calendar were ignorant of scientific matters by preferring a system not based on calculations, on the superior accuracy of astronomical calculations, and only relied on the habits of turbulent and wandering fanatics. So even though he gave, he calculated the Hijrah calendar for hundreds of years, but he didn't have a good opinion of it. Now, the Western perception of Islam. When Western traders landed on these shores, trade and governance of Malay states were fundamentally based on Islamic principles. The usual approach taken by colonial scholars toward Islam is usually one of skepticism, criticism, and placing logic at the highest level of reason, above tradition, culture, character, Islamic intellectual tradition, and law. So consequently, the history of Malay civilization is often distorted by Western inclination to accentuate the role of Western influence in bringing progress and modernization to the native population. So they're here to bring modernity, to modernize everything, to civilize the native people. Consequently, what happened was Sharia law was replaced by British colonial law until today. And the sovereign of England replaced the sovereignty of the rulers of the Malay kingdoms. So early Malay dictionaries played an important role in this transition through the introduction and normalization of Western culture and ideologies in vocabulary. In conclusion, the learning of Malay by English traders enabled them to reap enormous benefits, both in wealth and power, instrumental in the effort to colonize the Malay Peninsula and the Malay archipelago. So we shouldn't be so proud that they wanted to learn Malay. They had an ulterior motive. So we need to understand those motives and understand how we got to this position. The Malay language was utilized as a tool to control the economy, infiltrate the government, and dominate the society. The most significant change and most lasting change was the methodical transliteration of Malay from Jawi to the Roman script. So we are less fortunate. We're in that sense. This form of British cultural imperialism supported colonial plans to eliminate traces of Islam in the administration of the Malay Peninsula and implemented colonial policies and practices which have endured even after independence until today. So the definitions, cultural terminologies, Islamic terminologies were ambiguous, inaccurate, and incomplete. They were influenced by the social values and scant knowledge of Islamic traditions of the compilers. Secular and Christian concepts replaced pedagogical connections between Islamic terminologies and the Holy Quran. Western beliefs and secular values were incorporated in Malay vocabulary. Introduced romanization of written Malay, severing the Malay language from its original Islamic sources. So when we no longer have the knowledge of the Jawi script, we lose the knowledge of original traditional Islamic scholars in our region. Okay. This resulted in the inaccessibility of original Malay and Islamic knowledge, and the gradual marginalization of the Jawi script and a more secularized society and nation. So in a nutshell, the abandonment of Jawi in the dictionary, because later on, after Marsden, Jawi was not used at all in the dictionaries. Marsden was the last. And the adoption of the Rumi Romanized Malay writing system is a consequence of Western colonial lexicographic scholarship. So the gradual omission of Jawi in these dictionaries led to the disempowerment of the people through the restriction of unique idiomatic expressions, Islamic thought, Islamic belief system, and worldview. That's all. Thank you very much.
Okay, welcome Dr. Norazlina for a very wonderful presentation and also full contents, full contents of the presentation today. So now I open to the floor who are here face to face to come up with the questions, and also those who are online, so to write up whatever questions that need to be highlighted and also addressed to our respected speaker today. So please.
Stop. You can just.
This one.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for a very interesting presentation. And I really appreciate the things that you give us, visual appreciation, visual something for us to see, and appreciate your explanation. Maybe I have a curiosity, something. I was wondering whether this Bowery, he himself assumed two professions. I mean, he's the translator as well. He's the trader, right? Independent trader. But was he a translator as well? I mean, oral translator. He was the one who translate anything to do with the Sultan and the traders and things like that. Is he also the translator at that time?
From my knowledge, I didn't find any evidence of that because it appears that I looked over his other documents regarding his life in this region. He appears to be really sincere in wanting to help English traders to come trade and for them to learn Malay. He was really sincere about that. Even after his death, they didn't find any evidence that he had an ulterior motive or he helped other people to access the the ruler or things like that.
Okay, what's the letter to Sultan of what?
From Sultan Ternate.
Abdul Hayat on Ternate to the king who translate the letter.
Okay, at this time, the Sultan was 7 years old.
Okay.
So there were scribes, the court scribes wrote the letter for him. And when the letter reached Portugal,
Portugal.
they have translators there. Malay was very important.
Wow.
So they had Malay translators in Portugal and other parts of Europe.
So the Malay translators was a
Probably a Portuguese,
yes,
not
a
a Malay.
Portuguese. Yeah, yeah. That's interesting. Oh, okay. One more thing. Are there any surviving documents on the list of like translators that can speak both languages? For instance, like Malay and Portuguese, like Malay and
During
English.
this period.
During that period.
Yeah, there are many publications, not just dictionaries. My focus was
I mean, the
only on
name of the translator, the
Yes.
surviving. Oh,
Yes.
wow.
There are books being published, glossary, a catalog of the names of people who publish grammars, a word list, not dictionaries.
So
All over the world.
all over the world.
Yeah.
All right. So meaning that maybe they are the one who translate as well as
Yes.
documented all the
Yes.
words. Okay, thank you very much.
Because when they presented these meetings, they discussed this about the Malay language in the British East India meetings in London. They had to be translators. They had to be interpreters to translate documents or letters or records from the Malay states in England. You see, so there are are many Malay
people who
translators can translate,
can speak Malay
can
and
understand.
bilingual.
Who are not Malays.
All right, who are not Malays. Yeah, yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Somebody has to write on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, sister.
That's another research. Ada? No?
Okay, any questions? Tengku, brother Tengku, I saw your face. You have one question to Azrina? Okay, just. Tepi.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I saw via the online. I think this subject is subjects that used to be very technical, where people study dictionaries on the technical, like psychography, things like that. But I want to ask one question. Apart from the technical issues on setting up libraries, build word collections, what will be the contributions of those who are actually interested in word collections or in libraries when it comes to searching the epistemology of the Malays, or I mean in terms of how the Malays actually used to be very well versed in trading in the past. Thank you.
Your question again?
What would be do you find any epistemologies that to shows that Malays was good traders? I mean, they trade with the world in the past.
They did not. I could not find much literature on or evidence on the Malays trading, any documentation of the Malays. Just based on these two dictionaries and other dictionaries, they only reveal their communication and their interactions with other Malay traders. And in that sense, not many, mostly foreign traders. They traded mostly with foreign traders in the region. So not much documentation can be found on the way Malays did trade, or the how it evolved, you know, how they developed into traders and what were their mode of communication, or how they negotiated. Even how they negotiated with Malays were not revealed in the dictionaries or in the literature. Only, you know, just general conversations or negotiations, mostly the price, but they did not specify Malay traders, only other traders. So I could not find that. And I believe there are documents or literature that pertains to that subject. But yet, I will look into that, inshallah.
Okay, thank you so much for the questions and over our Zoom. So from Brother Farhan, very interesting, Doctor. Okay, thank you to Doctor and also ISTAC highlighting these two very important dictionaries. And from Syed Iftikhar, thank you a lot for very interesting and also informative session. The question is there any Urdu Malay dictionary?
There are Urdu Malay dictionaries. I think maybe Brother Syed will have to do research on that. Yeah, antiques one, there are. Because the British and other European trade companies did trade in that region, in the Indian continent. So I think there are.
Okay, Brother Syed, you may look into this dictionary in your country over there, inshallah. Okay, good to see. Prof. Aziz, is there anything to ask to Dr. Azlina? Just wait for a while, brother, our technical. Oh, cannot. Just wait. Okay, we let our technician here to unmute from our Zoom platform.
Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Hello.
Okay, we can hear you.
Can you hear me or cannot?
Yeah, yes, Prof. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, let me congratulate the Syed Naquib al-Attas Library for organizing this very important series and bringing such experts and scholars. I think that's something new and very important in the roles of the library in educating the student, the postgraduate student, the public, and bringing scholars and researchers in these areas. I think that's very important for us to enhance our Malay world civilization studies at ISTAC. As you remember, we are enhancing this specialization and this niche area. So we need more students to do their master and PhD in these areas. We need more research on these areas. We need more scholars and experts to speak in these areas of the Malay world civilization interest. We look at it from the civilization perspective. I think the lecture of our sister today, though in a specific topic about the dictionary, but it tells a lot about the Malay world as the center of movement, of trade. And when you say movement of trade, means movement of ideas, people, culture, heritage. So means in the end impact at the local or regional or international perspective. I believe and trust that the lecture of our sister today is very important, and I hope we can deepen this and pursue the discussion in this area, and we don't just look at it from the perspective of the dictionary per se, but the other dimensions which brings other cultures, other civilizations, other people in contact. And that's how civilization flourishes. So my simple question to our doctor today, so after you explained all this very beautiful information, so what is next in your perspective, in your view? How do you see the evolvement of this area of research? What is next? What should the ISTAC, for example, do? Or what other institutes or universities or other experts or other societies or association related to this area. What is our next course of action when it comes to research or coming up with publications or doing activities, whether academic or cultural or social? How do you see this? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Prof. Aziz. Okay, do you have any answer for that?
Thank you, Prof. Aziz, for your comments and your question. We need to look now at the dictionaries that we have now by Dewan Bahasa and Pustaka, because if you look at how they refer to Marsden and other Western lexicographers, compilers of dictionaries, they still hold them in high esteem. They're considered respected compilers, lexicographers, and many of their works is still present in our dictionaries. So we have our own Dewan Bahasa and Pustaka who publish our official dictionary. So we need to take a look again carefully and see if there are any remnants from these colonial scholars, from their interpretations in our current dictionaries. All nations that were colonized, we need to take a look at that. How and these words and the future development of our language, it depends on our dictionaries. Even though we think that dictionaries are not being used, we still look at online dictionaries. We still translate online. So these, the Dewan Bahasa needs to be the reference point that is accurate and free from bias, free from colonial ties, colonial influence. This is the year 2023. We need to reassess what we have today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Doctor, for a very for brilliant answer to the questions. Okay, Prof. Murad, to ask something.
I don't have any questions, perhaps, so maybe one or two along the way. But first, I want to thank Sister Dr. Norazlina for deliberating an important topic with regard to the climate, the linguistic climate in the Malay archipelago at the time, based on the two dictionaries. And this is exactly what we expect or we want from this series of lectures, al-Attas Library Lecture. I cannot use the word al-Attas anymore. From the series of lectures that one, it is to promote. I want to emphasize that this series lecture is to promote the holdings of the library. It is not only on a subject, but to promote the holdings, books, dictionaries, manuscripts, anything that we want to introduce to the world, that this is what we have in the dictionary. So basically, specifically, these two dictionaries are in the library. Okay? Second is that we also want to deliberate to society that one can do a thesis based on the sources. I suppose that most of the sources are here. So that's good. That I think you have to, again, to emphasize that you can do a whole thesis based on only sources in the library. This is, I think, what our students should also consider seriously, and supervisors need to inform students, need to guide students that the whole library can be pertinent and can be the only source for their PhD or their masters, because we want to utilize, we want to exploit the library, exploit, not to abuse, but to exploit in a positive manner. So this is what we expect, and we hope that many more, would deliberate. The focus of these lectures is on that, on the usage of the materials, and also based on your work, you have proposed a very important, what do you call it, condition before the coming of colonialism in a formal way or so. And these are country traders. They are independent, but you have not mentioned country traders. And the country trader is a name by itself, and they do not have any ulterior motive. And Marsden was a scholar. Marsden, he loves Malay pantun and Malay literary works, expressions. That is based on what from his works and his readings. That's what he is. He doesn't have any assumption to control or to be powerful and so on. He was working for the AIC. He's not like Raffles. He's also not like Francis Syed, who wants to be an adventurous lot. Also, it's important, I think, to say that they do not assume to be colonizers. They only want to trade, and therefore they develop. And it shows that Malay is spoken in the Malay archipelago, and Malay at the time is spoken in the other parts of the world. In Western Europe, we're talking about Western Europe, and also in India. I think the Urdu dictionary would be later. Urdu is a recent language, not an old language. It's a combination of several languages, Persian and Arabic. But I think Urdu would be around the 1800s. So that's another one. But it's important for us to look back and to use dictionaries as indicator, proxy for not only for exchanges of goods, as you said, but also as the existence of an indigenous economic system, not only based on these two dictionaries, but also based on the letters from the Ternate letters and from, I think, from the letters of Francis Syed. Similar, I think Francis Syed benefited from Bowery or Bowery in some of the works. I think especially this Bowery and Marsden. Francis Syed, in fact, it was Francis Syed letters was earlier classified as Marsden letters. When Francis Syed died, 1794, his letters somehow or other were brought to London and was auctioned in London. The person who purchased the collection of 1,200 letters of Francis Syed was Marsden, because he wanted to study Malay language and Malay literature and how Malay speaks. So when he bought it, it was classified as Marsden letters, reposited under King's College, 1826, and later his widow bequeathed it to SOAS in 1916. So when we go through Francis letters, it resonates. Marsden's interest. It's the digital copies are in USM archives. So again, I suppose, I mean, I want to make a statement here that the letters of Francis Syed, 1,200 letters, philologically, linguistically, based on the words used, will be an extension of Bowery and Marsden in the Malay archipelago. Thank you. Yes, they are being studied. They have been transliterated. All the letters, all 1,200 letters have been transliterated from Jawi to Rumi. And we have developed a portal at the USM archives. You can access. Earlier, sorry, I deviate a bit, but it is related. Earlier, the letters, when it was at SOAS from 1916 until 2000, until about early 2000, it was difficult to get access. And many historians went to SOAS. They were only given bits and pieces, 1 or 2 volumes, because letters are bounded in 12 volumes. And historians find it difficult to get access to all 12 volumes. But I tried my luck in 2011. I was given all 12 volumes, and I was given the opportunity to scan. And in 2012, they gave me all the scanned copies, personally to me, my own, asking me not to profit from it monetarily and also not to divulge to any other person. So I kept my word. I wanted the letters to do research on the history of Pulau Pinang, but they gave me everything, and historians know. And then finally, they gave me their version, second version of the digitized copy when I was at USM, and I convened MOA with SOAS and USM so that the letters can be kept at USM, the digitized copy. So when the letters were with me, we transliterated it for 7 years, transliteration, and we studied a bit. Now the letters have been studied by a number of historians, also by a few students. One student in USM is studying how the Malays go to Haji during that period, in the period in the 17th, because the letters are 17, according to the SOAS, it is 1771 to 1794. But when we look at the letters, it went back to 1768. So the letters straddle over two Kedah sultanates, and the letters are also from other sultans: Sultan Kelantan, Terengganu, Johor Riau, Batu Bara, Palembang, Pontianak, Brunei. And not only sultans, but Malay aristocrats, Malay traders, and the common people. Also the ladies who have had affairs with Princess Light. We suspect that. Also indicative of who Princess Light married. He married a Malay actually, but the history says that they deny, they erase that the Malay element in his matrimony. So it's being studied and it's being published, the book catalog. But we welcome people who want to study many things about the letters. In fact, from this month onwards until November, USM Archives is having a monthly lecture on the light letters. The significance of the light letters is that when we brought in the letters to Malaysia, after negotiations and after getting the necessary copyright requirements, as I was asked to get from the wari-wari yang tulis surat tu, which I say impossible. And then they asked me to get permission from the descendant of Francis Light. So I met the descendant in Adelaide in 2014. And I told him, and I got back to SOAS, SOAS agreed. When it's here, we change. See, the process of moving the letters from SOAS to USM is a process of decolonization already. And when it's there, we use the letters to re-narrate the period that you are talking about and to amend the name of the letter. It won't be called Letters of Francis Light, Francis Light Collection as in SOAS, but we call Surat-Surat Warkah Melayu dari Kepulauan Melayu. Malay letters from the Malay Archipelago, 1771 to 1794. So we're going to have 4 lectures in USM, and we'll viral up the posters. One is to introduce the letters. Second is to access the letters. Third is contents of letters, and the 4th lecture will be on Haji, done by one student at USM. So it's related, and thank you very much for, I think that from this lecture and from the recording, we can viral the lecture here. We can distribute it as to as many people as possible. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Prof. Datuk Murad, for adding very important points for this history of the dictionaries as well as Malay Archipelago. So I think that is the end of the question and answer for our event today. So on behalf of ISTAC ISTAC-IIUM, Syed Muhammad Naquib al-Attas and organizing committee for this Syed Muhammad Naquib lecture number 3. We would like to thank to Dr. Norazlina for your presentations today. It's very fruitful and also open our eyes to the civilization that we already have it during the Malacca period. Okay, to remark our appreciation, I invite Professor Datuk Murad to come in front. Okay, we also invite respected Dr. Azlina to receive a token of appreciation from Prof. Murad. Okay. Okay, thank you, Prof. Datuk Murad and also Dr. Azlina. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, we are now come to the end of our program today. On behalf of ISTAC, SMNA, and also organizing committee, we would like to thank for your attendance and also present today, face-to-face over here in Syed Muhammad Naquib al-Attas Library, as well as those online from Zoom platform and also from the YouTube, ISTAC YouTube platform. We apologize for any shortcomings during the program. And then let us end our program today by reciting Surah Al-Asr. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh.